So once again, welcome back to the session, everyone, and very good evening. So we will be starting with the practice marathon session from today onwards. So basically, when it comes to the session, we will be going through all the topics, which means almost all the important topics for the AA exam. And definitely, we will also be practicing questions from multiple areas as well. So, well, we know that basically when it comes to the paper AA, well, we have got some important areas to revise as well as to practice more questions on. So one such area is the area of audit risk. And in addition to the area of audit risk, definitely we have got the area of internal controls. And well, within the internal controls, which all are the most important areas, which are usually used to be tested in every exam? Within the internal control part, definitely they will be asking us for internal control deficiencies and recommendations. And at the same time, they will also be asking us for the strength in control. That's a direct control as well as its test of controls. Then we have got one of the most important area. That's the area of substantive procedures. I believe this might be one of the most important area which you might be struggling as well. So we'll be having a proper discussion on the area of substantive procedures. In addition to which, we have also got areas of reporting, then ethics, as well as in addition to this, we have also got the area of corporate governance. So these are the main key areas of our syllabus. And these are the areas which might be probably be asked as part of the descriptive question. Anyway, one of the 20 or 30 mark question will be from the area of audit risk, or it can also be from the area of internal controls as well. And when it comes to the area of substantive procedures, normally you'll be getting up to 15 marks as a single question among 125 mark question. And another 5 mark of that question will be from the area of reporting. Then there are possibility where ethics question will also be asked as part of the audit risk question, or it can also be a mere chance that corporate governance also will be tested as part of the audit risk questions. So these are the key areas of our AA syllabus. And in addition to this area, definitely we have got 30 marks area, which is from the MCQ part, or we'll call it as MTQs. So we'll be having MTQ questions as well. So literally our whole exam will be a blend of this MTQ question as well as this descriptive part. So out of which today, as it's a start of the session, we'll be starting with the area of audit risk itself. So as I mentioned earlier, either one of your 20 mark question or 30 mark question will definitely be from the area of audit risk itself. So audit risk area question. So well guys, what do you mean by the area of audit risk? What do you mean by the term audit risk? And then audit risk I don't respond to what do you mean by audit risk? It's a risk of giving an
inappropriate opinion
on the financial statements. Financial statements opinion chance audit risk. So we'll always consider that audit risk is the possibility of giving an inappropriate opinion on the company's financial statements. And as an auditor, well, we know that basically there are 3 things that might result in the audit risk. There are possibilities of having inherent risk. Then what else?
Control risk.
Control risk. In addition,
detection risk.
Having detection risk as well, right? So these are the 3 things which will give rise to audit risk. There will be inherent risk, control risk, and detection risk. So basically, when it comes to the area of inherent risk, we know that even though a company has taken adequate controls, still there is always possibility of having mistakes. So before considering any related controls of the company, there are possibilities of mistake in the financial statements, maybe due to the nature of the company's business, or maybe due to the company's operations, like kind of complex transactions, and all will result in inherent risk. അപ്പോൾ ഒരു കമ്പനിയുടെ കൺട്രോൾസ് എല്ലാം കൺസിഡർ ചെയ്യുന്നതിന് മുന്നേ തന്നെ അവിടെ എന്തൊക്കെ മിസ്റ്റേക്സ് ഉള്ള പോസിബിലിറ്റി ഉണ്ടോ അതിനെയാണ് നമ്മൾ ഇൻഹെറന്റ് റിസ്ക് എന്ന് വിളിക്കുക. In addition to that, we have studied control risk. And when it comes to control risk, well, we know that as a company, every company is required to maintain an internal control. But in case if a company have not maintained adequate internal control, there's always possibility that there will be mistakes in the company's financial statements, which are not corrected, prevented, or detected by the entity's internal control. And this possibility will give rise to mistakes in the financial statements called control risk. അപ്പോൾ നമ്മുടെ കമ്പനിയുടെ ഫിനാൻഷ്യൽ സ്റ്റേറ്റ്മെന്റ്സിന്റെ അകത്ത് മിസ്റ്റേക്സ് ഉണ്ടാകാനുള്ള പോസിബിലിറ്റിയാണ്. എന്ത് കാരണം കൊണ്ടാ? കൺട്രോൾസ് പ്രോപ്പറായിട്ട് വർക്ക് ചെയ്യാത്ത കാരണം കൊണ്ട്. അതിനെയാണ് കൺട്രോൾ റിസ്ക് എന്ന് വിളിക്കുക. And finally, basically, when it comes to the area of detection risk, well, we know that as an auditor, we are required to perform adequate amount of audit procedures to pick the mistakes in the company's financial statements. But unfortunately, by performing the audit procedures, we are not able to pick the mistakes in the financial statements. That's somewhat called detection risk. അപ്പോൾ ഓഡിറ്ററായി നമുക്ക് കമ്പനിയുടെ ഫിനാൻഷ്യൽ സ്റ്റേറ്റ്മെന്റ്സിനകത്തുള്ള മിസ്റ്റേക്ക് കണ്ടുപിടിക്കാൻ പറ്റാത്തതിനെയാണ് ഡിറ്റക്ഷൻ റിസ്ക് എന്ന് വിളിക്കുക. ആൻഡ് ഓൾ ദിസ് വിൽ ടുഗെദർ ഗിവ് റൈസ് ടു ഓഡിറ്റ് റിസ്ക്. And out of the audit risk, the inherent risk and control risk will together be called as risk of material misstatement. Risk of material misstatement. Yeah, this is something called inherent risk and control risk together. And overall audit risk will be the combination of risk of material misstatement and detection risk. So this is what we learned about the term audit risk. And you have to keep in mind this one because this is one of the most important as well as the usually tested theory from the area of audit risk. The examiner is always having this as a hot topic. They always used to ask the same requirement, define audit risk and components of audit risk. So usually used to get a 5-mark question from this area. So keep this one in mind. If you get a question on audit risk and components of audit risk, give this as the answer. Okay. However, well, we know that that's not a short question, but definitely you will be getting a question to pick the audit risk from the scenario, and they will also be asking you to provide auditor's response. Auditor's response. I believe you guys are very much familiar with this area because definitely we might have already practiced multiple questions from this area. I believe we have already gone through the whole revision kit on this topic, audit risk and auditor's response. So basically, when it comes to the area of audit risk and auditor's response, we will be getting 1 mark for each risk and 1 mark for each response. And for the part of risk, first of all, as an auditor, when we give the answer, what we need to do?
Identify.
Exactly. We need to identify the risk from the scenario. Then, secondly, we need to
accounting treatment.
Explain the risk. So on what basis we'll be explaining the risk? On the basis of accounting treatment. Exactly. We need to mention the accounting treatment properly. Then we need to mention about the risk on what will go wrong. എന്താണ് തെറ്റായിട്ട് സംഭവിക്കാൻ ചാൻസ് ഉള്ളതെന്ന് പറയാം. And finally, we need to show the impact on financial statements. So this is what we need to provide as the risk. So we will identify a risk. We will explain it on the basis of accounting treatment. We will mention what will go wrong in that case. And finally, we will also give the impact that will occur over the company's financial statements. Say, for example, consider that it is mentioned in the scenario that a company have spent 20 million on research and development. Company 20 million research and development spend. So what will be the accounting treatment in that case? As per IAS 38 intangible asset, all the expenses which we have spent on research should be expensed in the P&L, and the amount spent on development should be capitalized if it's meet the criteria. But what will be the risk in that case, or what will go wrong in that case? There can be chances that company might have capitalized some of the research expenses, resulting in overstated intangible asset and understated related expenses. So this will be our answer for that. അപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ എന്തായിരിക്കും പറയാ? ആദ്യമേ റിസ്ക് സിനാരിക്കത്തുള്ള അതുപോലെ തന്നെ പിക്ക് ചെയ്യും. നമ്മൾ എന്ത് മെൻഷൻ ചെയ്യും? The company have spent 20 million on research and development. Then we will explain it. As per IAS 38 intangible asset, research expenses should be expensed and development should be capitalized if it meets the criteria. Then right after that, we need to mention what will go wrong. എന്താണ് തെറ്റായിട്ട് സംഭവിക്കുന്നതെന്ന് പറയാം? That there are chances that the company might have capitalized research expenses. അത് കാരണം കൊണ്ട് അപ്പൊ എന്ത് സംഭവിക്കും? റിസർച്ച് എക്സ്പെൻസസ് ഡെവലപ്മെന്റ് എക്സ്പെൻഡിച്ചേഴ്സ് ഓവർസ്റ്റേറ്റഡ് ആവും, റിസർച്ച് എക്സ്പെൻസസ് എന്താവും? അണ്ടർസ്റ്റേറ്റഡ് ആവും. ഇതായിരിക്കും നമ്മൾ റിസ്ക് ആയിട്ട് കൊടുക്കുക. ആൻഡ് വൺസ് വി ഹാവ് ഗിവൺ ദ റിസ്ക്, correspondingly, we must also provide the responses for that. And as a response, we should always mention about procedure first. Procedure plus whatever be the document or information that we require, that document or information need to be provided. And finally, we need to clearly specify about the purpose for which we are performing this auditor's response. അപ്പോൾ എപ്പോഴും ആദ്യമേ എന്താണോ നമുക്ക് പ്രൊസീജിയർ ആയിട്ട് ചെയ്യാനായിട്ടുള്ളത് അത് പറയാം. whatever be the document or information required, എന്താണോ ഡോക്യുമെന്റിൽ ഇൻഫർമേഷൻ വേണ്ട അത് പറയാം. And finally, we need to provide the purpose. എന്തിനു വേണ്ടിയിട്ടാണോ നമ്മൾ ഇതൊക്കെ ചെയ്ത് അത് പറയാം. So, when it comes to the area of procedures, so നമുക്ക് common ആയിട്ടുള്ള കുറെ procedures use ചെയ്യാനുണ്ടാവും. So these are the set of procedures which you can use in every scenario. You can use the term agree, analyze, ascertain, assess, compare, consider, inquire, ensure, examine, inspect, monitor, observe, obtain, recalculate, reconcile, reperform, review, scrutinize, verify, vouch. Any of this can be used as part of the terms. However, you must always keep this one in mind. You should not use unprofessional terms. Like you should never use the term ask the management. Instead, you should always use the term inquire with the management or discuss with the management. So you will always use to mention, you have to mention the term inspect the books or review the books. You should never state read the books. Read the books, ask, ഇങ്ങനെയുള്ള term ഒന്നും use ചെയ്യരുത്. പകരം inspect അങ്ങനെയുള്ള terms use ചെയ്യാം. And whenever you need to review something that is ongoing, you must always use the term observe. നടന്നുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന ഒരു കാര്യമാകുമ്പോൾ observe അല്ലെങ്കിൽ monitor എന്നുള്ള term use ചെയ്യാം. So these are the set of procedures which you can use. So in the next day's session, we will be going through the area of substantive procedures. So while learning the area of substantive procedure, we'll discuss more about the procedures part. So for the time being, these are the set of procedures that you can use in every case. Then, when it comes to the document or information, just think about the risk first. അവിടെയുള്ള റിസ്ക് എന്താണെന്നുള്ള ആദ്യമേ ആലോചിച്ച് നോക്കുക. ആ റിസ്കിന് റെലവെന്റ് ആയിട്ട് എന്ത് ഡോക്യുമെന്റ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഇൻഫർമേഷൻ ആണ് നമുക്ക് യൂസ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്നതെന്ന് ആലോചിച്ച് നോക്കുക. ആൻഡ് പേർപ്പസ് എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ എന്താണോ നമ്മുടെ റിസ്ക് അതുണ്ടോ എന്ന് അറിയാന്നുള്ളതായിരിക്കും നമ്മുടെ പേർപ്പസ്. So always keep this one in mind. Whenever you use the term procedure, you should clearly specify on a professional term. Then you have to give the document or information which is actually apt for the risk part. And when it comes to the purpose, you should clearly specify about the risk which you need to confirm. So നമ്മളിപ്പോൾ ഒരു റിസ്ക് പറഞ്ഞു already. That the company have spent 20 million on research and development, and we have stated as a risk that company might have capitalized some of the research expenses, which would result in overstated intangible asset and understated expenses. So what we can take it the response for that procedure നമ്മൾ പറയണം. So well, we need to know whether they have correctly split between research and development. So what we can do, we can obtain
Breakdown.
obtain the breakdown of obtain the breakdown of
Research and
research and development expenditure. What will be the purpose?
Ensure the split.
In order to confirm the split between research and development are done in accordance with accounting standards. Okay, this will be the response for that. So obtain will be the procedure there. Breakdown of research and development expenditure will be the document or information which we require, and purpose in order to confirm whether the split between research and development are done in accordance with IAS 38 intangible assets. So this will be the auditor's responses for that. So actually, we have already gone through multiple audit risk and response. So you can use the set of risk and response for almost all the cases. അപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ കുറേ റിസ്ക്കും റെസ്പോൺസുകളും ഡിസ്കസ് ചെയ്തിരുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ ഈ റിസ്ക് ആൻഡ് റെസ്പോൺസ് നോക്കി കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ you will get a clear picture about what you need to give us risk and what you need to give us the response. So I will show you this file at the end of the session. I have already given to those students who were already there in our regular session. So this is what we need to consider while writing the risk as well as the response. There should be a clear identification part. Then there should be an explanation on what risk it is. And finally, we need to give the impact that will occur over the company's financial statements. And when it comes to the response part, we need to clearly define the procedure Then we need to give the document or information required, as well as we need to give the purpose for which we will perform each of this procedure. Say, for example, we have already discussed about these set of points. Maybe consider that it's a new client for the audit firm. When it comes to a new client for the audit firm, definitely there are chances where the auditor will not be familiar with the client's accounting policies, transactions, and balances. Therefore, there can be possibility of having detection risk on the audit. അപ്പോൾ നമ്മളോട് ഒരു പുതിയ ക്ലയന്റ് ആണ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ നമ്മൾ എന്തായിരിക്കും പറയാ? പുതിയ ക്ലയന്റ് ആകുമ്പോൾ ഓഡിറ്റർക്ക് ഫെമിലിയർ ആയിരിക്കില്ല, ഓഡിറ്റർക്ക് ക്ലയന്റിന്റെ അക്കൗണ്ടിങ് പോളിസിനെ കുറിച്ചോ ട്രാൻസാക്ഷനെ കുറിച്ചോ ബാലൻസിനെ കുറിച്ചോ ഒന്നും. അപ്പോൾ അവിടെ ഡിറ്റക്ഷൻ റിസ്ക് ഉണ്ടാവും എന്നുള്ളതായിരിക്കും നമ്മൾ പറയാം. ആൻഡ് വാട്ട് വിൽ ബി ദ റെസ്പോൺസ് ഇൻ ദാറ്റ് കേസ്? ആസ് എൻ ഓഡിറ്റർ നമ്മളൊരു എക്സ്പീരിയൻസ്ഡ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഓഡിറ്റ് ടീമിനെ യൂസ് ചെയ്യണം. സഫീഷ്യന്റ് ടൈം അലോക്കേറ്റ് ചെയ്ത് എൻറ്റിറ്റിനെ കുറിച്ചും അവിടെ എന്തൊക്കെയാണ് റിസ്ക് ഓഫ് മെറ്റീരിയൽ മിസ്റ്റേക്സ് ഉണ്ടാവുന്നത് അതിനെക്കുറിച്ചും മനസ്സിലാക്കാൻ പറയാം. So likewise, we need to give the response. So we'll be stating that as an auditor, we need to use a suitably experienced audit team, and the team should spend sufficient time on understanding about the entity as well as identifying the risk of material mistake that might arise for the client company. So this is how you need to clearly state the risk as well as the response part. So basically, when it comes to the risk, which I explained just now, there were no accounting treatment related to the risk. Instead, we have just explained it in normal terms. So in the cases where there are no specific accounting treatment, you may just identify the risk and just explain it in your own words about how it will create a risk. അപ്പോൾ എല്ലാവരും ഈ ഫയൽ ഒന്ന് വായിച്ചു നോക്കണേ. Okay. And maybe another case, say for example, if it is mentioned in the scenario that there is a legal case against the company. So when you get a point where there is legal case against the company, just think about the situation from the accountant's perspective about what treatment that you need to take in that case. അപ്പോൾ ഒരു particular provision create ചെയ്യണം എന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അവിടെ എന്താണ് ചെയ്യേണ്ടത്? As per IAS 38 provision പ്രകാരം നമുക്കറിയാം, for the probable future cash outflow നമ്മൾ provision create ചെയ്യണം. അവിടെ ഉണ്ടാവുന്ന റിസ്ക് എന്തായിരിക്കും? കമ്പനി പ്രൊവിഷൻ ക്രിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ടാവില്ല, പ്രൊവിഷൻ അണ്ടർസ്റ്റേറ്റഡ് ആയിരിക്കും, പ്രോഫിറ്റ് ഓവർ സ്റ്റേറ്റഡ് ആവും. അപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ ഇങ്ങനെയായിരിക്കും എക്സ്പ്ലെയിൻ ചെയ്യാം. The company has a legal case against them. Therefore, the company should create a provision for the probable future cash outflow as per IAS 37 provision contingent liabilities and contingent asset. However, there can be chances that the company might not have created adequate amount of provisions, resulting in understated provision and overstated profit. What we can take as a response, there should be a procedure. So discuss. There should be an document or a information with the management about the discuss with the management whether the company have created adequate amount of provision in relation to the legal case against the company to confirm whether it is reasonable and are in accordance with IAS 37. So that will be the purpose. So nammalore procedure paranju, discuss with the management, information paranju, whether the company have created adequate amount of provision, and purpose paranju to confirm whether it is reasonable and are in accordance with standards IAS 37. So avada namukkoru procedure undu, documental information undu, purpose undu. So this is what you need to give us responses. I believe you guys are familiar with this because this is actually question practice session. So I was just giving an introduction about what you need to write as part of the risk as well as the responses. Then normally, well, we know that usually examiner used to ask about the risk and responses which are based on analytical procedures. So they might ask us to calculate some set of ratios, and on the basis of the ratios which we have calculated, they will ask us to explain the risk. So when you get a question based on audit risk with analytical procedures, the examiner might be asking you to calculate some set of ratios. So in that case, you are only required to calculate those ratios. But in other cases, the examiner will give a scenario plus a financial statements extract, and they will ask you to calculate the ratio and identify the risk of material misstatement arising from the question. അപ്പോൾ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഫിനാൻഷ്യൽ സ്റ്റേറ്റ്മെന്റ്സിന്റെ ഒരു പാർട്ടും സിനാരിയോയും തന്നിട്ട് റിസ്ക് കണ്ടുപിടിക്കാനാണ് പറയുന്നതെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ, these are the set of ratios which you need to calculate. First of all, you need to calculate the gross profit margin, then the operating profit margin, receivables days have to be calculated, inventory days, payables days, current ratio, quick ratio, interest cover ratio, and gearing ratio. So these are the whole set of ratios which we need to calculate. So first of all, we need to consider gross profit margin and operating profit margin after the computation. So you need to look at the company's GP and OP margin. Consider that as compared with the prior year, I mean in the previous year, the company's gross profit margin has been increased. And if the operating profit margin has also increased in the same direction, there's no issues. Or if the company's gross profit margin has been decreased and the operating profit margin has also decreased, again, there's no issues. Our GP margin, OP margin, kuduo, random koryo cheythu kayna prashanilla. However, if there is an inverse relationship between the GP and the OP margin, say for example, the GP margin has increased and as shown here, the operating profit margin has decreased. So in that case, we will assume that the company's cost of sales is understated and operating expenses are overstated. So there's only possibility there. The expenses that need to be included within the cost of sales might be misclassified into operating expenses. Now, GP margin കൂടുകയും OP margin കുറയുകയും ചെയ്തു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ നമ്മൾ assume ചെയ്യും നമ്മൾ കോസ്റ്റ് ഓഫ് സെയിൽസിന്റെ അകത്ത് ഇതിന്റെ എക്സ്പെൻസിനെ കൊണ്ടുപോയിട്ട് ഓപ്പറേറ്റിംഗ് എക്സ്പെൻസ് ആയിട്ട് കാണിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടാവുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ ഓട്ടോമാറ്റിക്കലി എന്ത് സംഭവിക്കും? കോസ്റ്റ് ഓഫ് സെയിൽസ് അണ്ടർസ്റ്റേറ്റഡ് ആവും, ഓപ്പറേറ്റിംഗ് എക്സ്പെൻസസ് ഓവർ സ്റ്റേറ്റഡ് ആവും. അപ്പൊ ഇതായിരിക്കും നമ്മൾ അവിടെ റിസ്ക് ആയിട്ട് പറഞ്ഞു വെക്കുക. മനസ്സിലായോ? സോ നമ്മൾ റിസ്ക് പറയുമ്പോൾ എങ്ങനെയായിരിക്കും പറയാ? We need to interpret in this manner. The company's gross profit margin has been increased from 40% to 60%, and the operating profit margin has been decreased from 45% to 42%. Therefore, there can be chances that expenses need to be included within cost of sales might be misclassified into operating expenses, leading to overstated operating expenses and understated cost of sales. So this is what you need to give us the risk there. Is that clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then, secondly, we need to consider the receivables days. Consider that the receivables days have been increased from 56 days to 80 days. So when there is a significant increase in the amount of receivables days, we can always consider the possibility that there will be bad and doubtful debts for the company. So then we need to think about the accounting treatment. So when there is bad and doubtful debts for the company, we need to consider that the company should have either written down the amount of bad and doubtful debts, or the company should have created an allowance for receivables. And what if nothing is done? The receivables balance will be overstated and the related expenses will be understated. So that is what we will be giving as the risk. അപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ ഇങ്ങനെയായിരിക്കും പറയാ, കമ്പനിയുടെ റിസീവ്സ് ഡേയ്സ് കൂടിക്കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ നമ്മൾ പറയും ബാഡ് ആൻഡ് ഡൗട്ട്ഫുൾ ഡെപ്സ് ആണെന്ന്. അപ്പൊ ആ ബാഡ് ആൻഡ് ഡൗട്ട്ഫുൾ ഡെപ്സ് ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നമ്മൾ എന്ത് ചെയ്യണം? നമ്മൾ ഒന്നെങ്കിൽ റിസീവ്സിന്റെ എമൗണ്ട് റൈറ്റ് ഓഫ് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ടാവണം, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അലവൻസസ് ഫോർ റിസീവ്സ് ക്രിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്യണം. രണ്ടും ചെയ്തിട്ടില്ലെങ്കിൽ എന്ത് സംഭവിക്കും? റിസീവ്സ് ഓവർസ്റ്റേറ്റഡ് ആവും, റിലേറ്റഡ് എക്സ്പെൻസസ് അണ്ടർസ്റ്റേറ്റഡ് ആവും. Is that clear, everyone? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Then next it comes to the inventory days. The company's inventory days has been increased from 35 days to 60 days. So when there are significant increase in the amount of inventory days, there is always a possibility that the company's inventory might be slow moving or obsolete. So when the inventories are taking too much time to get it sale, there is always a possibility that the inventory will be slow moving or obsolete, which need to be written down to the lower of cost or NRV. But there is always a possibility that the company might not have done that. And what will be the result? There are chances that inventory will be overstated and related expenses will be understated. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Then, next, payable days. See, when there is increase in the amount of payables days, you're not required to write any specific risk in relation to that. But consider that if a company's payable days has decreased, but at the same time, the company's profit has increased, revenue has increased, in that time, there is always a possibility that the payables balance should also increase, thereby creating an increase in the amount of payables days. അപ്പോൾ ഒരു കമ്പനിയുടെ പ്രോഫിറ്റ് ഭയങ്കരമായിട്ടും കൂടുവാണ്, അറ്റ് ദി സെയിം ടൈം കമ്പനിയുടെ റവന്യൂവും ഭയങ്കരമായിട്ടും കൂടുകയാണ്. നമുക്ക് വേറെ ഡീറ്റെയിൽസ് ഒന്നും തന്നിട്ടില്ല. അങ്ങനെയാണെങ്കിൽ സ്വാഭാവികമായിട്ടും കമ്പനിയുടെ പേയബിൾസ് ഡേയ്സും കൂടുകയാണ് ചെയ്യേണ്ടത്. പക്ഷെ കമ്പനിയുടെ പേയബിൾസ് ഡേയ്സ് നമ്മുടെ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ കുറയുവാണ് ചെയ്തേക്കുന്നത്. അങ്ങനെയാണെങ്കിൽ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് പറയാം there's a possibility that the company might have intentionally understated the amount of payables, thereby creating material mistakes in the company's financial statements. And as a response, as an auditor, you should be more skeptic and you should be alert for the purpose of having possibility of fraudulent transaction in the company. And in addition to which, you can also review the judgmental areas as well as the possibility of having errors have to be tested by the auditor. So that will be the main response here. So payables days എന്തെങ്കിലും മാറ്റം വരുന്നുണ്ടോ നിങ്ങൾ നോക്കുക. Then, in addition to which, you need to consider this whole set of ratios together. After considering this whole set of ratios together, say I've given the ratios in two colors. One set of ratios in green and the other set of ratios in yellow. So let me ask you guys, is it better to have an increase in the amount of gross profit margin and operating profit margin or a decrease in the same amount? What will be the favorable ratio?
Increase.
Increase. What about the current ratio, quick ratio, and interest cover ratio? Is it better to have an increase or a decrease in these amounts?
Increase.
Definitely increase. What about the inventory, receivables, payables, and gearing?
Decrease.
It is better to have a decrease. So those ratios in green should increase and those in yellow should decrease actually. That will be the favorable ratios. However, by looking at this chart, you can consider which all ratios are moving in the opposite direction, which means those will be unfavorable ratios. So in this case, this company's operating profit margin is not favorable because that is decreasing, right? Then, in addition to which, the company's receivables, inventory, and payables days are increasing nature, which is also not favorable. Current quick and interest cover ratio is decreasing, which is not favorable. Gearing is also increasing, so definitely it is not at all favorable. So we need to pick all those ratios which are adverse or not favorable for us. And we need to consider all these ratios together. And you can mention about the possibility of having uncertainty relating to going concern. So you can mention in this manner, the company's operating profit margin has been decreased from 45% to 42%. In addition to which, the receivables, inventory, and payables days has been increased significantly. The current quick and interest cover ratio has been decreased. And at the same time, the company's gearing has also increased twice. Therefore, there is possibility of having uncertainty relating to going concern, for which the company should have adequately disclosed in the financial statements. However, there can be chances that the company might not have done that, resulting in material mistakes in the disclosures to the financial statements. അപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ ഇങ്ങനെയായിരിക്കും പറയാ, എല്ലാ റേഷ്യോസും കൂടെ പിക്ക് ചെയ്യും, എന്നിട്ട് നമ്മൾ പറയും അൺസർട്ടനിറ്റി റിലേറ്റിംഗ് ടു ഗോയിങ് കൺസേൺ ഉണ്ടെന്ന്. അങ്ങനെ എന്തെങ്കിലും അൺസർട്ടനിറ്റി റിലേറ്റിംഗ് ടു ഗോയിങ് കൺസേൺ ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അത് ആഡിക്വേറ്റ്ലി ഡിസ്ക്ലോസ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ടാവണം. റിസ്ക് എന്തായിരിക്കും? ഡിസ്ക്ലോസ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ടാവില്ല. അപ്പം ഫിനാൻഷ്യൽ സ്റ്റേറ്റ്മെന്റ്സിന്റെ ഡിസ്ക്ലോഷേഴ്സ് മെറ്റീരിയലി മിസ്സ്റ്റേറ്റഡ് ആവും. ഇതായിരിക്കും നമ്മൾ റിസ്ക് ആയിട്ട് കൊടുക്കുന്നുണ്ടാവുക. സോ ദിസ് ഈസ് ഹൗ വി വിൽ ബി അനലൈസിങ് റേഷ്യോസ് റിലേറ്റഡ് audit risk. So literally speaking, we have got some set of ratio related risk. So which are the ratio related risk which you can pick? First one, ഏതൊക്കെയായിരുന്നു റേഷ്യോ റിലേറ്റഡ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള റിസ്കുകൾ നമുക്ക് പിക്ക് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്നത്? ഏതൊക്കെയാ? ഫസ്റ്റ് വൺ, GP versus OP margin. Then secondly, you can consider receivable days. Okay. Then what else? Third one? Inventory days. Then payable, right? Payables days. And finally, going concern related uncertainty. And out of പേയബിളിന്റെ നമ്മൾ പറയുന്ന ഇത്രയുള്ള നമ്മുടെ കമ്പനിയുടെ പേയബിൾസ് ഭയങ്കരമായിട്ടും കൂടി. അങ്ങനെയാണെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നമ്മൾ നോർമലി അവിടെ റിസ്ക് ആയിട്ട് പറയേണ്ട ആവശ്യമില്ല. പക്ഷെ നമ്മൾ നോക്കുമ്പോൾ കമ്പനിയുടെ പ്രോഫിറ്റ് കൂടുകയാണ്, റവന്യൂ കൂടുകയാണ്, പക്ഷെ കമ്പനിയുടെ പേബിൾസ് ഡേയ്സ് കുറയുന്ന പോലെയാണ് സിനാരിയോയിലുള്ളത്. നോർമലി പ്രോഫിറ്റും റവന്യൂ ഒക്കെ കൂടുമ്പോൾ വേറെ ഇൻഫർമേഷൻ ഒന്നും തന്നിട്ടില്ലെങ്കിൽ അവിടെ എന്തിലും ഇൻക്രീസ് വേണം? പേബിൾസിലും ഇൻക്രീസ് വേണം. കാരണം നമ്മൾ ഒരു സാധനം വാങ്ങിയാലേ വിൽക്കാൻ പറ്റുള്ളൂ. പക്ഷെ ഇവർ പറയുന്നത് ഇവരുടെ ഈ റവന്യൂവും കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ കൂടുമ്പോൾ പേബിൾ കുറയുകയാണെന്ന്. അങ്ങനെയാണെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അവിടെ എന്തായിരിക്കും പോസിബിലിറ്റി ഉണ്ടാവുക? There can be chances that payables balance intentionally understated ആയിരിക്കും. ക്ലിയർ ആയോ? Okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Then, when you are getting a question based on analytical procedures, always keep this one in mind. The GP versus OP ratio as well as the going concern point can be given as separate points. GP, OP and going concern separate point at the എഴുതാം, which means if there is any change in the ratio like this, you can definitely include those points. But when it comes to the receivables days, first of all, you have to go through the scenario totally. Then you need to trace whether there is any other points relating to the receivables. Say, for example, it may be mentioned in the scenario, there are some concerns about the credit worthiness of the customers. So if any statement is written like that, then you need to combine that point and the ratios together, and you need to present it as a single point. So you can give the point like this. There are some concerns about the credit worthiness of customers of Allen Company, in addition to which the receivables days have been increased from 56 days to 80 days, which gives the possibility of having bad and doubtful debts for the company, and further risk can be explained. Same as that, when there is something that is mentioned in the scenario relating to the inventory, you need to combine those statement on inventory plus the plus the inventory days ka movement, and then you need to write the risk. Payables also same case, you have to consider whether there is anything written in the scenario relating to the payables, then only you should mention about the payables days as well. But when it comes to GP versus OP or going concern, you can give it a separate point. You are not even required to consider whether anything is given in the scenario or not. So this is how you need to give the ratio analysis part. But again, I'm repeating the same thing. When you get a question, always keep this one in mind. First of all, you have to properly go through the scenario that is given by the examiner. And only after picking risk from the scenario, you should start with the ratio computation. There is one specific reason for that. Sometimes the examiner might be asking you to calculate some set of ratios in order to identify the risk of material mistakes in the financial statements. However, within the scenario itself, they might have already given some ratios computed. So if you compute the same ratio again, you're not going to get any marks for that, right? അപ്പം ഓൾറെഡി ചിലപ്പോൾ സിനാരിയോക്ക് തന്നെ അവർ റേഷ്യോ കാൽക്കുലേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ടാവും. എന്നിട്ട് നിങ്ങൾ വീണ്ടും ആ റേഷ്യോ തന്നെ എടുത്ത് കാൽക്കുലേറ്റ് ചെയ്താൽ നമുക്കൊന്നും കിട്ടൂല. അപ്പൊ അത് കാരണം കൊണ്ട് മൊത്തം സിനാരിയോ വായിക്കുക, അവരെന്തെങ്കിലും റേഷ്യോ കാൽക്കുലേറ്റ് ചെയ്ത് തന്നിട്ടുണ്ടോ നോക്കുക. ആൻഡ് ഇഫ് ദേ ഹാവ് ഗിവൺ സം സെറ്റ് ഓഫ് റേഷ്യോസ് കാൽക്കുലേറ്റഡ്, യു ആർ നോട്ട് റിക്വയർഡ് ടു കാൽക്കുലേറ്റ് ദോസ് റേഷ്യോസ്. ഇൻസ്റ്റെഡ് യു ഓൺലി നീഡ് ടു calculate the ratios once, the one which they haven't given. Plus one more thing, there are chances where the examiner might be asking you to calculate some specific set of ratios. In those cases, you can calculate that ratio first, and in addition to that, you can also calculate the additional ratios, because you will be getting additional mark on analyzing the risk in relation to the ratios which the examiner have not asked. അപ്പൊ എക്സാമിനർ ഏതെങ്കിലും 3 റേഷ്യോ ചോദിച്ചുള്ളൂ, അത് തന്നെ കാൽക്കുലേറ്റ് ചെയ്യണമെന്ന് നിർബന്ധമില്ല. ആദ്യം അത് കാൽക്കുലേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുക, അതിനുശേഷം അഡീഷണൽ ഈ സെറ്റ് ഓഫ് റേഷ്യോസും കൂടെ കാൽക്കുലേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുക. കാരണം ഇതിന്റെ ബേസിസ് നിങ്ങൾ റിസ്ക് അനലൈസ് ചെയ്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് അഡീഷണൽ മാർക്സ് കിട്ടും. സോ യു ഹാവ് ടു ഓൾവേസ് ഫോക്കസ് ഓൺ ദാറ്റ്. ഓക്കെ, ഓൾറൈറ്റ്. So we will just do one thing now. We will start with a question, and then we will move on to the other discussion part. Okay. So we'll start with a question from the area of audit risk itself. So now we're going to start with a old question actually, firstly, and then we will move on to the latest question, because there are no much questions which were issued by the examiner very recently, which are based on audit risk with analytical procedures. So we will calculate the ratios for this question, as well as we will analyze the risk in relation to this question. So it's a question called dazzling, question number 207 in the latest revision kit. So in the question dazzling, they have asked us to calculate 3 ratios for both the years, which means you need to calculate the ratio for the current year as well as for the previous year. And on the basis of the ratios which we calculate, they have asked us to identify and explain 8 audit risk and auditors' responses. So we'll just do one thing. We'll go through the question again, First of all, we will read the whole question, and after that, we will calculate the ratios as required by the examiner. And then we will analyze the risk in relation to the ratios computed as well. So everyone, please start with this question. It's question number 207, dazzling, the latest kit. And this question is also available in the old revision kit as well. So please take the kit which you have, and please take the question dazzling and start with it. So first of all, read the whole scenario, and after that, please compute the ratios, and then we will analyze the risk based on this ratio. So please start with this, everyone. So let's start with the discussion part. So let me know which all are the ratios which have calculated. ഏതൊക്കെ ratios calculate ചെയ്തത്? GP margin?
Inventory days.
Okay, inventory days. Then what else?
Receivables days.
Okay, receivables days.
Payables.
Payables days. Okay, what about the other ratios? Current Q and the current ratio, Q ratio. Yeah. So what will be the company's gross profit margin? എത്ര പെർസെന്റേജ് കറണ്ട് ഇയറിൽ, എത്ര പെർസെന്റേജ് പ്രീവിയസ് ഇയറിൽ?
37.3 current year.
37.3. What about the previous year?
36.4.
36.4. Then what about the inventory days?
81 days.
31 now.
81.
Okay, 31 days. Previous year?
88.
Sorry?
81 days.
81 days. And the previous year?
45.
45. Okay. Receivables days?
51.
Okay. Previous year?
38.
Payables days? Current year?
58.
58 days. Previous year long? ചെയ്തില്ലേ? Previous year എത്രയാ?
Previous year 40, current year 58. 85.
Current
Sir,
ratio,
inventory
ratio.
days.
ഏതായിരുന്നു? Inventory days?
Inventory days previous year
ആ.
54 അല്ലേ?
Previous year 54 ആണോ? അത് കറണ്ട് ഇയറിലോ?
Previous year.
sir.
ആ, കറണ്ട് ഇയറിൽ.
Current year.
Okay. കറണ്ട് ഇയർ 54 ആണോ? Yeah. Then current ratio, Q ratio എത്രയാ?
Current ratio current year 1.65.
Okay. Previous year
3.08.
3.08. Okay. Q ratio?
Current year 0.99.
Okay.
1.97.
1.1. Okay.
97.
1.97. Okay. All right. So let's start with the scenario now. So it's 1st July 2015. You are the audit supervisor of E&Co and are planning the audit of Dazzling Company for the year ending 30th September 2015. The company develops and manufactures specialized paint products and has been a client of your firm for several years. The audit manager has attended a planning meeting with the finance director and has provided you with following notes of meeting and financial statements extracts. You have been asked by the audit manager to undertake preliminary analytical procedures using the financial statement extracts. During the year, Dazzling has spent 0.9 million, which is included within the intangible assets, on development of new product line, some of which are in early stages of the development cycle. So what will be the risk here?
Classification.
Yeah.
Criteria meet ചെയ്യാത്ത amounts capitalize ചെയ്യും.
Exactly. So that's what we can mention here. So we can mention that the company has spent 0.9 million on research and development. Therefore, there should be correct split between research expenses and development expenses. Only those expenses which have been spent on research should be, only those expenses which are spent on development should be capitalized, and all the expenses spent for research should be expensed in the P&L. However, there can be chances that company might have capitalized some of the research expenses. What will be the risk?
Overstating.
Asset will be overstated and expenses will be understated. Clear line?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What should be the response for that?
Obtain the breakdown of expenditure and research.
Obtain the breakdown of research and development expenditure of 0.9 million. And review the split between the expenses to confirm whether these have been done in accordance with the IAS 38 intangible assets and are reasonable. Clear? Yeah. Additionally, as the company is looking to expand the production, during the year, it purchased and installed a new manufacturing line. All costs incurred in the purchase and installation of the asset have been included within property, plant, and equipment. These capitalized costs include purchase price of 2.2 million, installation cost of 0.4 million, and a 5-year service and maintenance plan costing 0.5 million. In order to finance the development projects and the new manufacturing line, company borrowed 4 million from the bank, which is to be repaid in installment over 8 years and has interest rate of 5%. Developing new product and expanding production is important as the company intends to undertake stock exchange listing in next 12 months. So what are other risks here?
Revenue expenditure capitalized.
Revenue expenditure capitalize. Which revenue expenditure?
Service cost.
Service and maintenance costs. So the company have spent on a 5-year service and maintenance plan, which is amounting to 0.5 million, and they have capitalized it. So what's the actual requirement of the standard there? Standard പ്രകാരം എന്ത് ചെയ്യണം നമ്മൾ പഠിച്ചിട്ടുള്ളത്?
അത് എക്സ്പെൻസ് ചെയ്യേണ്ടത്.
Okay. Yeah. So well, we know that only those expenses which will be incurred till the date on which an asset will become available for use can be capitalized, and all other expenses need to be treated as revenue expenditure. അല്ലേ? നമുക്ക് അസറ്റിന്റെ ഡയറക്ട്ലി അട്രിബ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്ന എക്സ്പെൻസ് മാത്രമാണ് ക്യാപിറ്റലൈസ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുക. അതിന് ശേഷമുള്ളതെല്ലാം നമ്മൾ റവന്യൂ എക്സ്പെൻസ് ആയിട്ട് വേണം ട്രീറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ. 5-year service and maintenance plan is also a revenue expenditure, but the company have already capitalized it. So what will be the impact on the financial statements? Value of asset will be overstated and the related expenses will be understated. Yeah. So whenever you get a question, you should never consider to pick the risk from the scenario. Instead, you should always consider taking the accounting treatment for the risk, and on the basis of the accounting treatment, you need to think what might go wrong here. That will be the risk. അപ്പോൾ എപ്പോഴും ഒരു ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ കിട്ടുമ്പോൾ അതിൽ അവിടെ ശരിക്കും വേണ്ട അക്കൗണ്ടിങ് ട്രീറ്റ്മെന്റ് എന്താണെന്ന് ആലോചിച്ച് നോക്കുക. ആ വേണ്ട അക്കൗണ്ടിങ് ട്രീറ്റ്മെന്റ് നേരെ ഉൾട്ടയായിരിക്കും നമ്മുടെ റിസ്ക് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. Okay. So here we can explain that Dazzling company have purchased and installed a new manufacturing line, and the cost of capitalization includes a 5-year service and maintenance plan of 0.5 million. And as per IAS 16 property, plant, and equipment, all the expenses relating to the asset that are including purchase price and those expenses that can be directly attributable to the asset's working condition can only be capitalized. All other expenses should be expense to the P&L. However, the company have already capitalized a revenue expenditure resulting in overstated assets and understated value of overstated value of asset and understated expenses. So what should be the response here? എന്തായിരിക്കും നമുക്ക് റെസ്പോൺസ് ആയിട്ട് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുക ഓഡിറ്ററിന്റെ സൈഡിൽ നിന്ന്?
The finance manager and request to remove the capitalization.
Perfect. There are many students who used to mention here about discussing the rationale on the basis of which this amount is included, obtaining the breakdown to consider whether this expense is included. അപ്പം ബ്രേക്ക് ഡൗൺ ഒബ്റ്റൈൻ ചെയ്തിട്ട് എക്സ്പെൻസ് ഇൻക്ലൂഡ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ടോ നോക്കാൻ പറയുന്നവരുണ്ടാവാം. റാഷണൽ എന്താണെന്നുള്ളത് ചോദിക്കണം എന്ന് പറയുന്നവരുണ്ടാവാം. So is it actually necessary to do any of this? No, because it's already a confirmed mistake, right? We are very much aware that it's a mistake because they have themselves confirmed that it's a mistake here. So in that case, we are not required to again request for the data to consider whether it's a mistake or not. Instead, we are only required to ask the management to correct the mistake in relation to the same balance. Okay. So in that case, we'll just do one thing. We'll discuss with the management about the mistake in relation to the capitalization of expenses, and we will request them to pass adjustment entries by removing the amount of 0.5 million from the value asset and including the same amount as part of the company's revenue expenditures. Clear, Ayo? Is it clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What else? Where are the mokle risk ulladu?
Company borrowed bank loan, current and
Yeah.
non-current.
Good. Company have taken a new bank loan. So it's a usual risk which used to appear in almost all the exams, and it's a very easy risk as well, right? So the company have taken a new bank loan. So well, we know that when a company have taken a new bank loan, there should be correct split between current and non-current liability, right? And after getting the split of current and non-current liability, the company should have included all the liabilities which need to be repaid within 1 year as current, and the liabilities which need to take over 1 year should be treated as non-current liability. And as we can see over here, it's an 8-year loan. So the major part of the loan will be non-current liability. So there should be correct split between current and non-current liabilities. However, there can be chances that the company might not have done that, resulting in under or overstatement of current and non-current liabilities. Clear?
Yes, sir.
And what will be the response?
Obtain the split of current and non-current liabilities. How much
So-
it is current.
Yeah, instead of obtain, you can use the term review. Okay. So review the split of current and non-current liability and the disclosures for the loan in order to confirm whether these are in accordance with accounting standards. Our current and non-current liabilities in the split review and paraya, disclosures for loan and no paraya, in the accounting standards prakaram thaneyanu confirm cheyan paraya. Is that clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next one. What's the next risk?
Interest expenses.
Exactly. Whenever there is a possibility of having a new loan, you can always mention about the possibility of having mistakes in relation to the finance cost as well. So when a company have taken a new loan, there is always an additional finance cost that need to be recognized as part of the loan, as it's a 5% interest bearing loan. And there's a risk that the company might not have included the interest expenses within the finance cost, which might result in understated finance cost and overstated profit. And what will be the response in that case? And then you can respond, sir. The finance cost for the company should be recalculated, and we need to agree the amount of the loan documents in order to confirm whether the finance cost taken by the management is appropriate, and it has also recognized the interest expense in relation to the new loan. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. The company started a number of initiatives during the year in order to boost the revenue. It offered extended credit terms to customers on condition that their sales order quantities were increased. In addition, Dazzling Company made an announcement in October 2014 of its price promise that it would match the price of any competitor for similar products purchased. Customers who are able to prove that they could purchase the products cheaper elsewhere are asked to claim the difference from Dazzling Company. Within 1 month of the date of purchase of the goods via its website, company intends to include a refund liability of 0.25 million, which is based on monthly level of claims today in the draft financial statements. So tell me, guys, what are the risks here?
Credit receivable dates. Receivable days കൂടിയിട്ടുണ്ട്. അതുപോലെ ക്രെഡിറ്റ് ടേംസ് ചെക്ക് ചെയ്യാണ്ടാണ് നമ്മൾ കസ്റ്റമറിന് എക്സ്റ്റെൻഡ് ചെയ്ത് കൊടുത്തത്. അപ്പോൾ ബാഡ് ആൻഡ് ഡൗട്ട്ഫുൾ ഡെപ്റ്റിന് സാധ്യത കൂടുതലാണ്.
Okay. So will you be able to connect any other ratios calculated to this point?
Receivable days കൂടിയിട്ടുണ്ട്.
Exactly. Yeah, good. The company have extended credit terms of these customers without even reviewing their credit terms appropriately. And the company's receivables days has been increased from 38 days to 51 days. So there can be possibility of having bad and doubtful debts, for which either the company should have created allowances for receivables or bad and doubtful debts should be written off from the financial statements. If not, receivables will be overstated and the related expenses will be understated. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
And what should be the response? And there again.
Discuss with management.
Extended post year.
Extended post year and cash receipts testing need to be undertaken, right? So year endinu ശേഷം cash receipts എന്തെങ്കിലും വന്നിട്ടുണ്ടോ എന്ന് നോക്കാം. And the post പിന്നെ വേറെ എന്താ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുക? Age received ledger need to be reviewed, and the auditor should also consider adequacy of allowances for receivables. So whenever there's an issue in relation to the revenue, you can always use this point. We have already learned about that, right? So എപ്പോഴും അത് തന്നെ യൂസ് ചെയ്യാം. എപ്പം receivables related issue വന്നു കഴിഞ്ഞാലും you can use the same point. Extended post year end cash receipts testing. So you can consider whether the company have got cash receipts after the year end. Review the age receivables ledger. We will consider whether we have got money from, so we will consider whether we will get the money from old balances by reviewing the age receivables. And we will also consider adequacy of allowances for receivables. We need to check whether there is any requirement for the allowances for receivables. അപ്പൊ എല്ലാവരും ഒന്ന് അൺമ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്തിട്ട് പറഞ്ഞേ. അപ്പൊ എന്തൊക്കെയാണ് നമ്മൾ പറയേണ്ടത്? Extended post year end cash receipts testing, then review of age receivables ledger, and we need to consider adequacy of allowances for receivables. So this is that point. നമ്മൾ ഓൾറെഡി പറഞ്ഞു പഠിച്ചതാണിത്. എന്തായാലും മക്കളെ പറയേണ്ട അപ്പോൾ നിങ്ങൾ പറഞ്ഞേ ഫൈനലി എക്സ്റ്റെൻഡഡ് പോസ്റ്റ് ഇയർ ആൻഡ് ക്യാഷ് റെസിപ്റ്റ്സ് ടെസ്റ്റിംഗ്, റിവ്യൂ ഓഫ് ഏജ് റിസീവ്ഡ് ലെഡ്ജർ, then consider the adequacy of allowances for receivables. Okay, perfect. Then what else?
Sir, sir, ഇവിടെ സ്റ്റോക്ക് എക്സ്ചേഞ്ച് ലിസ്റ്റിംഗിനെ കുറിച്ച് പറയുന്നില്ല ഇതിന്റെ മേലത്തെ പാരഗ്രാഫില്. ആൻസർ കീ വരുമ്പോ അതിനെ കുറിച്ച് പറയുന്നുണ്ടല്ലോ റിസ്ക് ആയിട്ട്, അതൊന്ന് എക്സ്പ്ലെയിൻ ചെയ്തുതരാം.
നമ്മളിപ്പോ നിങ്ങൾ പറഞ്ഞു പോകുന്ന റിസ്ക് ആണ് പറഞ്ഞു പോകുന്നത്. നമ്മൾ മിസ്സായതെല്ലാം ലാസ്റ്റ് ഡിസ്കസ് ചെയ്യാൻ വെച്ചേക്കുന്നതാണ്. നമുക്ക് ആ റിസ്ക് പറഞ്ഞോ എന്താ റിസ്ക് അവിടെ?
സർ അത് എനിക്ക് മനസ്സിലായില്ല, അത് സർ പറയാതിരുന്നപ്പോ ഒന്ന് എന്താണ് പറയാൻ.
ഓക്കെ, ആരും ആൻസർ കീ നോക്കിയിട്ടില്ലല്ലോ, അല്ല ആൻസർ പറയുന്നത്.
അല്ല സർ, ഇത് പ്രാക്ടീസ് ചെയ്തതായിരുന്നു, ആ ടൈമിൽ ഇത് മനസ്സിലായില്ല.
സീ, നമ്മുടെ കമ്പനി സ്റ്റോക്ക് എക്സ്ചേഞ്ച് ലിസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ പോവാന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു വരുന്ന 12 months അല്ലേ? സോ കമ്പനി ഈസ് പ്ലാനിങ് ടു മേക്ക് എ ലിസ്റ്റിംഗ് ഇൻ ദ സ്റ്റോക്ക് മാർക്കറ്റ് വിത്തിൻ നെക്സ്റ്റ് 12 months. So when a company plans to make stock market listing, the company need to show good result to the investors. So what will they will do? They will be biased. They will try to intentionally overstate the value of asset and the company's profit to attract more investors, which might result in fraudulent transaction, resulting to material mistakes in the company's financial statements. മനസ്സിലായോ? അതായത് ഒരു കമ്പനിക്ക് സ്റ്റോക്ക് എക്സ്ചേഞ്ച് ലിസ്റ്റിംഗ് നടത്താനാവുമ്പോഴത്തേനും അവരെന്ത് ചെയ്യും? ഇന്റൻഷനലി കമ്പനിയുടെ പെർഫോമൻസ് കൂട്ടിക്കാണിക്കാൻ ശ്രമിക്കും, ഷെയർ ഹോൾഡേഴ്സിനെ അട്രാക്ട് ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ട്. അപ്പം ഓട്ടോമാറ്റിക്കലി കമ്പനിയുടെ അസറ്റ്സും അതേപോലെ തന്നെ പ്രോഫിറ്റും എല്ലാം ഓവർ സ്റ്റേറ്റഡ് ആയിരിക്കും. അപ്പൊ കമ്പനിയുടെ ഫിനാൻഷ്യൽ സ്റ്റേറ്റ്മെന്റ്സ് മെറ്റീരിയലി മിസ്സ്റ്റേറ്റഡ് ആവും. ക്ലിയർ?
യെസ് സർ.
യാ. ആൻഡ് വാട്ട് വി കൻ ഡു ആസ് ദ റെസ്പോൺസ്?
പ്രൊഫഷണൽ സ്കെപ്റ്റിസിസം.
ഡെഫിനറ്റ്ലി സെയിം പോയിന്റ് വിച്ച് യൂസ് ഫോർ ബോണസ് അല്ലെ? ബോണസ് കൊടുക്കുന്നു എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ പറയാറുള്ള റിസ്ക് തന്നെയാണിത്. നമുക്കപ്പോൾ റെസ്പോൺസ് എന്ത് തന്നെ പറയാം? The audit team should maintain professional skepticism and being alert throughout the audit. In addition to which, the auditor should use an experienced audit team, and they should also spend sufficient time on understanding about the risk of material mistakes, and the auditor should also review the judgmental areas. Clear?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. What will be the other risk? What will be the other? Any other risk from the same area? Indo?
Refund liability.
Okay, refund liability. So basically, what we need to consider when there is a refund liability, the standard area, which is the standard which applies here actually?
Revenue recognition.
IFRS 15.
Revenue recognition, right? So when we know that, let me ask you, do you have any doubt on IAS 37 and IFRS 15? കൺഫ്യൂഷൻ വല്ലതും ഉണ്ടോ ആർക്കെങ്കിലും? IFRS 15ഉം IAS 38ഉം തമ്മിൽ, അതായത് ചില സ്ഥലത്ത് റീഫണ്ടിനെ കുറിച്ച് പറയുമ്പം നമ്മൾ പറഞ്ഞേക്കുന്ന 37 ആണ്, പ്രൊവിഷൻ ആണ്. ചില സ്ഥലത്ത് നമ്മൾ പറയുമ്പോൾ IFRS 15 ആണ്, റവന്യൂ റെക്കഗ്നേഷൻ ആണ്. മക്കളെ, just keep this one in mind. See, whenever there are some kind of refund which we need to provide in relation to the revenue, it will be coming under IFRS 15 because it's relating to revenue recognition. Only in case where we need to give a refund for the company's revenue. But if the company is having any other cash outflow, which is based on company's present obligation, it will be coming under IAS 37. Say, for example, we need to have a probable future cash outflow for a litigation or claim against the company when we are giving some sort of warranty provisions. So in all those cases, IAS 37 will be applicable. Clear ayo? കാരണം ഇവിടെ എന്താ കമ്പനി ഒരു ഒബ്ലിഗേഷൻ ഔട്ട്സ്റ്റാൻഡിംഗ് ആയിട്ട് നിർത്തിയേക്കുന്ന പോലെയാ. കമ്പനി ആവേശക്കാനായിട്ട് പറയാണ്, നമ്മളൊരു പ്രൈസ് പ്രോമിസ് തരാം, നമ്മളെക്കാളും വില കുറച്ച് വേറെ എവിടെയും സാധനം കിട്ടുകയാണെങ്കിൽ അടുത്ത 2 മാസത്തിനുള്ളിൽ സാധനം കിട്ടിക്കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ അതിന്റെ ഡിഫറൻസ് എത്രയാണ് ആ പൈസ ഞങ്ങൾ തന്നോളാം എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. അപ്പൊ അങ്ങനെ ഒരു പ്രോമിസ് കമ്പനി കൊടുത്തിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ഈ പ്രോമിസിന്റെ ടൈം ഈ 2 മാസം കഴിയാതെ ആ റവന്യൂ റെക്കഗ്നൈസ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റില്ല. പക്ഷെ ഫുൾ റവന്യൂ റെക്കഗ്നൈസ് ചെയ്യുന്നതിന് പ്രശ്നമില്ല. അവിടെ എത്രയാണോ റീഫണ്ട് ആയിട്ട് കൊടുക്കേണ്ടി വരുന്നത് ആ പ്രോബബിൾ ആയിട്ടുള്ള എമൗണ്ട് മാത്രം നമ്മൾ റീഫണ്ട് ലയബിലിറ്റി ക്രിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്ത് വെക്കും. ബാക്കി എമൗണ്ട് റവന്യൂ ആയിട്ട് റെക്കഗ്നൈസ് ചെയ്യാം. ആൻഡ് ഇവർ പറഞ്ഞു റീഫണ്ട് ലയബിലിറ്റി is 0.25 million. And the problem is, well, we know that it's a subjective area. 0.25 might not be appropriate. In that case, revenue will be overstated and the deferred income will be understated. Clear?
Yes.
Okay. And what should be the response in that case? And the response, the response is very simple.
Rational vehicle.
What we can do? We need to discuss with the management about the rationale on the basis of which they have taken the refund liability of 0.25 million. Consider whether it is reasonable and are in accordance with standards. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yes. Fine. What will be the related risk? Where and the risk on our
Inventory.
Inventory and revenue, right? So there can be chances that the company might have recalled products. So we will just do one thing. We'll discuss the rest of the area and we'll consider the rest together. The finance director informed the audit manager that a problem arose in June 2015 in relation to mixing of materials within the production process for one particular product line. Number of these faulty paint products have already been sold, and the issue was identified following a number of complaints from customers about the paint consistency being incorrect. As a precaution, further sales have been stopped and a product recall has been initiated for any of these specific paint products sold since June. Management is investigating whether the paint consistency of the faulty product can be rectified and subsequently sold. So what are the issues here?
Product recall.
Product? എന്തായിരുന്നു പറഞ്ഞ എന്തായിരുന്നു പ്രശ്നം?
Recall.
Product recall. So what's the issue there when there's a product recall?
Revenue കളയണം, അതുപോലെ ഇൻവെന്ററി നമ്മൾ റീഇൻസ്റ്റേറ്റ് ചെയ്യണം പ്രൊഡക്റ്റ് റീകോൾ നടത്തിയാൽ.
Perfect. When a company have recalled the products, well, we know that the amount of revenue which we have already recognized should be reversed. Then the receivables balance should be written off and inventory should be added back. And there can be chances that the company might not have done any of this, would result in overstated revenue and receivables and understated inventory. And what will be the auditor's responses? And the response are we need to review. Perfect. We need to review a sample of sales return. Sorry, we need to review a sample of credit notes അല്ലെങ്കിൽ sales returns and consider whether the sales have been written off. Revenue receivables have been revenue and receivables have been written off and the inventory have been reinstated to confirm whether the accounting treatment is appropriate. Is that clear? Okay. Then what will be the other risk?
Inventory obsolete.
Okay. They have mentioned that the company's obsolete inventory are still held in the company's warehouse. The faulty products can be rectified. Therefore, they have held those inventory in the company's warehouse. So you can mention that point. And in addition to which, you can also include the inventory days along with that. So you can mention that company have recalled faulty products. These are held in the company's warehouse. In addition to which, the receivables day, sorry, the inventory days have been increased from 45 days to 54 days. Therefore, there will be possibility of having slow moving or obsolete inventory which need to be recorded to the lower of cost of NRV. And there can be chances that the company might not have done this, resulting in overstated inventory and understated related expenses. Clear?
Yes, sir.
What will be the response?
Detailed NRV cost testing.
Okay. So testing should be undertaken to confirm whether the cost or NRV of the inventory is appropriately valued. And in addition to which, we should also ensure that the cost or NRV is recorded appropriately on line by line basis. So you can use always that point. Testing നടത്തണം എന്ന് പറയാ, cost ആണോ NRV ആണോ, whichever is lower, line by line basis appropriate ആയിട്ടാണോ value ചെയ്തേക്കുന്നത് നോക്കണം എന്നും പറയാം. Then what will be the other risk, guys? വേറെ എന്തൊക്കെയാ risk ഉള്ളത്? So you can use the other ratios as well. Is there any risk here in relation to the ratios? ഉണ്ടോ വേറെ ഏതെങ്കിലും risk?
Material uncertainty.
Exactly. You can pick all other ratios together and you can mention about the material uncertainty relating to going concern, right? So as you know, the company's inventory days has been increased. Receivables and payables days has been also been increased significantly. Gross profit margin is appropriate. The company's current and quick ratio has also decreased significantly. So you can mention that there's possibility in relation to the uncertainty for the company's going concern, which need to be disclosed appropriately. But again, there can be chances that this might not have been done, which would result in this would result in material mistakes in the disclosures to the financial statements. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What should be the response? What should be the response?
Discuss with the management about the uncertainty of concern, whether they have taken adequate
Okay. What if it's not?
breakdown basis.
Exactly. Yeah. No, instead we can consider whether they have disclosed it in the financials. Okay. So we can mention that discuss with the management whether there is any uncertainty relating to going concern. And in case of any uncertainty, we need to review the financial statements in order to confirm whether it have been adequately disclosed in it. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So these are the set of major risk and response which we can identify in relation to this scenario. So whenever you get the risk, you need to consider whether it is relating to any specific analytical procedures. If so, you need to combine both together and give the risk. If not, you can just give it a separate risk. And whenever you get a question based on audit risk with analytical procedures, make sure that you're going through the scenario first. After reading the whole scenario only, you should start with the computation part. And then you need to combine both the scenario and the ratios together. And you need to give the risk on the basis of which we will be giving our answers. So this is what you need to consider with regarding the area of audit risk. So your area everything clear ano?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So sorry. Clear ano? എല്ലാരും റെസ്പോണ്ട് ചെയ്തേ ക്ലിയർ ആണോ മക്കളെ?
Clear ആണ്.
Sir.
Okay, fine. Yeah. So I believe you guys have already gone through this area as well as you have practiced the questions in relation to these areas. So if you want to have a detailed discussion on any of these areas, you can just do one thing. You can just refer to my YouTube channel. Already prior sessions in the detailed sessions are in. So you can just go through that, okay? അതായത് നമ്മൾ ആ നോട്ട്സ് ഫുള്ളി ഡിസ്കസ് ചെയ്യുന്ന വീഡിയോസ് ഒക്കെ ലാസ്റ്റ് സെഷന്റെ കിടപ്പുണ്ട്. അത് വേണമെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നോക്കിയാൽ മതി. അത് ഫുൾ ഫ്ലെജ്ഡ് ആയിട്ട് തുറക്കുന്നിട്ട് അവസാനം വരെ നോട്ട്സ് ഡിസ്കസ് ചെയ്ത് പോകുന്നു ഓഡിറ്റ് റിസ്ക് ആൻഡ് റെസ്പോൺസിന്റെ. അപ്പോൾ അത് നോക്കിയാൽ മതി. ആർക്കെങ്കിലും ഡീറ്റെയിൽഡ് ആയിട്ട് കാണണം എന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ കേട്ടോ. ആൻഡ് നിങ്ങൾ ഓൾറെഡി പഠിച്ചതെന്നുള്ള പെർസ്പെക്റ്റീവിലാണ് നമ്മൾ ഇത് എടുത്തു പോകുന്നത്. ഓക്കെ, പഠിച്ചിട്ടില്ല എന്നുള്ളത് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് തന്നെ തോന്നുന്നുണ്ടെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നേരത്തെ വീഡിയോസ് നോക്കാം കേട്ടോ. Alright. Then we will move on to another most important area and we will revise the theoretical areas there first and then we will move on to the question practice. Okay.
Sir.
So next, it's the area of reporting part. So basically, well, we know that reporting is one of the most important area, but you will only get getting 5 marks from the area of reporting as part of your descriptive question. But definitely there can be chances that this will be asked as part of your MTQ questions as well. So you'll be getting approximately more than 10 marks, either on the basis of MTQ questions or on the basis of descriptive, because from the area of descriptive, anyway, you will be getting only 5 marks, but definitely there will be more than 5 marks from the MTQ part. Okay. So basically, when it comes to the reporting, the first thing we need to consider is the opinion part. So well, we know that when it comes to opinion, there are two sets of opinion which we will be expressing over the company's financial statements. So they will be modified opinion. And what was the other kind of opinion?
Unmodified opinion.
Unmodified opinion. And we will further divide this unmodified opinion as unqualified, which means the financial statements gives a true and fair view. And modified opinion will be further split into 3 heads. One will be
Adverse.
qualified, then adverse, and disclaimer of opinion. Okay. Qualified, adverse, disclaimer of opinion. Okay. And qualified opinion means that financial statements shows a true and fair view, but it is subject to some reservation. Adverse opinion means the financial statement does not give a true and fair view. Disclaimer of opinion means that the financial statements, we are not able to express an opinion on the finances due to the lack of audit evidence. But FS in the mistake on qualified. FS in the motam the tan or adverse. FS in a opinion disclaimer of opinion. And before considering about which opinion we need to provide on the company's financial statements, we need to consider two matters especially. What are those? One is materiality and the other one is pervasiveness, right? And while considering the materiality, what are the things we need to consider here while considering the materiality? ഏതിന്റെയൊക്കെ ബേസിസിന് മെറ്റീരിയാലിറ്റി കാൽക്കുലേറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുക? Either we can calculate it on the basis of elements of statement of financial position or on the basis of statement of profit or loss, or we can also consider the nature of the materiality. On the basis of SOFP, ഏതൊക്കെയാണ് നമുക്കുള്ള elements? Total asset and SOFP. Total asset and net assets. And when it comes to SOPL, we'll consider a revenue, profit, and gross profit, right? So total asset in etra percentage are the material total assets?
1%.
1% of the total asset. What about the net assets?
2%.
2%. Revenue?
Half.
0.5%, half percent. Profit?
5%.
5%. And what about the gross profit? Gross profit 0.5% itself. When it comes to the nature, we need to consider whether there is any matters which might affect the company's ability to continue as going concern, or whether there is anything that might affect the company's related party transactions. The related party transaction, it will be always material. And basically, when it comes to related parties, which all are the related parties which we will be usually considering? Parent company, subsidiary company, associate, joint venture, then transaction with key management persons, transactions with directors. All these will be related party transactions. So we will be considering whether this is material on the basis of elements of SOFP or on the basis of SOPL, and we'll be considering the nature as well. So on the basis of SOFP, as we mentioned, it is total asset and net assets. On the basis of SOPL, it's revenue, profit, or gross profit. On the basis of nature, it's going concern or matters relating to companies, related parties. Is that clear, everyone? Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine.
Sir, or a 5-minute break for prior.
Yeah, sure. Itran clear on ellarkum pakka?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So let's continue with the area. So, well, we need to consider the materiality as always. Same as that of materiality, it is important to consider the pervasiveness as well. So we will always be considering whether a mistake is pervasive or not. So basically, when it comes to the pervasiveness, its overall impact over the company's financial statements. ഒരു മിസ്റ്റേക്ക് ഒരു കമ്പനിയുടെ ഫിനാൻഷ്യൽ സ്റ്റേറ്റ്മെന്റ്സിന് മേലെ വരുത്തുന്ന ഇമ്പാക്ട് എന്താന്ന് പറയാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് നമ്മൾ യൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്ന ടേമാണ് പെർവേസീവ്നെസ് എന്ന് പറയാം. So we need to consider whether the mistake of the company will restate the reported profit to loss or reported loss to profit. That's a pervasive mistake. അതായത് നമ്മുടെ കമ്പനിയുടെ പ്രോഫിറ്റ് ലോസ് ആവോ ലോസ് പ്രോഫിറ്റ് ആവോ ചെയ്യുമോ നോക്കാം. അങ്ങനെയാണെങ്കിൽ എമൗണ്ട് ഓഫ് മിസ്റ്റേക്ക് പെർവേസീവ് ആയിരിക്കും. Say for example, consider that the company is already having a profit of 1,000 and company have not included an expense, which is a misstatement. Amount of expense is 1,500. So if the amount of misstatement were actually adjusted, this will be restated into a loss of 500. So it will be a pervasive mistake. Or consider that the company was already in a loss of 2,000 and there's a misstatement of 2,200, which was an income. And if this mistake is adjusted, then the company will report a profit of 200. Then that amount of mistake will be pervasive because it have restated reported to loss to profit or profit to loss. The amount of mistake will be pervasive. അപ്പോൾ ഒരു മിസ്റ്റേക്ക് ഓൾറെഡി ലോസ് നിൽക്കുന്ന കമ്പനീനെ പ്രോഫിറ്റിലാക്കോ ഓൾറെഡി പ്രോഫിറ്റ് നിൽക്കുന്ന കമ്പനീനെ ലോസിലാക്കോ ചെയ്യാൻ നോക്കാം. അങ്ങനെയാണെങ്കിൽ എമൗണ്ട് ഓഫ് മിസ്റ്റേക്ക് പെർവേസീവ് ആയിട്ടായിരിക്കും നമ്മൾ ട്രീറ്റ് ചെയ്യുക. Then secondly, we need to consider whether a mistake is having significant impact. നമുക്ക് അടുത്തായിട്ട് നോക്കാൻ പറ്റുന്ന 3 ക്രൈറ്റീരിയ ആയിരുന്നു. Whether it's a mistake which might significantly impact a single element of the financial statements. ഫിനാൻഷ്യൽ സ്റ്റേറ്റ്മെന്റ്സിലെ ഒരു സിംഗിൾ എലമെന്റിനെ, അതായത് മേ ബി കമ്പനിയുടെ ഇൻകം ആണ് ഈ ഇൻകത്തിനെ, ഏതെങ്കിലും ഒരു എക്സ്പെൻസ് ആണ് ഈ എക്സ്പെൻസിനെ സിഗ്നിഫിക്കന്റ്ലി എഫക്ട് ചെയ്യുമെന്ന് നോക്കുക. അതായത് ഇപ്പൊ സേ ഫോർ എക്സാമ്പിൾ കമ്പനി ഈസ് ഹാവിങ് എ ടോട്ടൽ റവന്യൂ ഓഫ് 10,000. Out of 10,000, 6,000 is misstated. In that case, the amount of mistake will be pervasive. Or consider that if it's a mistake that affects multiple area of the financial statements or the multiple elements of the financial statements. ഒരു മിസ്റ്റേക്ക് തന്നെ എഫ്എസിനകത്ത് പല ഏരിയനെ എഫക്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അതെന്തായിരിക്കും? പെർവേസീവ് ആയിരിക്കും. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ യൂസേഴ്സിന് ഏറ്റവും ഫണ്ടമെന്റൽ ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു അക്കൗണ്ടിങ് ഡിസ്ക്ലോഷറിന്റെ അകത്ത് എന്തെങ്കിലും മിസ്റ്റേക്ക് സംഭവിച്ചാൽ അതും പെർവേസീവ് ആയിരിക്കും. സോ ഇൻ ദിസ് മാനർ വി വിൽ ബി കൺസിഡറിങ് whether a mistake is pervasive or not. And consider there's a misstatement in the financial statement. FS nathu oru misstatement undu. It is not material as well as not pervasive. So we will be expressing an unqualified opinion. Consider that there's a misstatement which is material and pervasive. We need to provide an adverse opinion. If it's a mistake which is material but not pervasive, then we need to provide a qualified opinion. Or on the other hand, if there is a lack of audit evidence, we have tried to obtain evidence in relation to a figure, but we are unable to get the amount of misstatement. In that case, the lack of audit evidence, if that amount is not material and not pervasive, then we need to give an unqualified opinion. If the lack of audit evidence is material and pervasive, then we need to give a disclaimer of opinion. If the lack of audit evidence is material, not pervasive, then we need to give a qualified opinion. ഓർമ്മയുണ്ട് എല്ലാവർക്കും? സോറിക്കൂടെ പറഞ്ഞേ, there's a lack of audit evidence which is not material and not pervasive. What will be the opinion? There's a lack of audit evidence which is not material and not pervasive. എല്ലാവരും പറഞ്ഞു മക്കളെ?
Unmodified
opinion. It's unqualified and unmodified opinion. There's a lack of audit evidence which is material and pervasive.
disclaimer of it.
There's a lack of audit evidence which is material, not pervasive.
Qualified.
Material, not pervasive, qualified. There's a misstatement which is not material and not pervasive. Misstatement. Parimakla, misstatement, not material, not pervasive. Unqualified. There's a misstatement which is material and pervasive. Adverse. There's a misstatement which is material, not pervasive. Qualified. So this is how we will be expressing opinion over the company's financial statements. Okay. So let's start with a question now. There's a question called encore. Please read the introductory paragraph of this question first. It is 1st July 2015. You are the audit supervisor with Velo & Co. You are working on the financial audit of Encore company for the year ending 30th April Encore Company is a waste management company supplying services to a variety of government and business organizations. Encore Company's draft profit before tax is 5.3 million. Total asset is 40.1 million. You have been provided with the following information regarding the draft financial statements. So they have just given us an overview that Encore Company is a waste management company and their profit before tax is 5.3 million. They've got a total asset of 40.1 million. Then we need to read this part. Potential breach of transport regulations. In March 2015, a former employee of Encore Company made a complaint to the Transportation Authority, alleging that Encore has breached the regulation concerning maximum drive hours and compulsory rest break for the drivers on number of occasions. Transport Authority have launched an investigation, but the director of Encore are not intending to disclose this issue or make any provision as they do not believe that the potential fine, which is 50,000 per breach, is material. They have told us that Encore have violated some of the transport regulation, due to which they are required to pay an amount of fine, which is 50,000 per breach. But they have not made any disclosure in the financial statements because they are stating that this will not affect the current year financials. So now we have got a question. They have asked us to discuss the issue and describe the impact on auditor's report if any of this issue remain unresolved. Nammalodu ividutte issue endanu, impact over auditor's report endaayirikkum ennaanu choദിchekkunnu. Ividutte issue unresolved aanennundengil. So now let's read the issue. It is now 26th August 2015. Auditor's report for the Encore Company is finalized. On 12th August 2015, the Transport Authority announced that it was taking legal action against Encore in respect of 17 breaches of regulations. Encore Company's lawyer has advised that it is probable Encore will be found guilty of all of the breaches. Encore Company's directors have informed you that no provision will be made in respect of this matter, as the decision by the authority to take action was made after the year end. But they have agreed to disclose issue in the notes to financial statements. So they have told us that it's after the year end. It's 26th August 2015. Now it is confirmed that there are 17 breaches in total. And Encore's lawyer have already confirmed that we will be found guilty and we are required to pay amount of fine for the 17 breaches. And the directors have not yet created any provision in respect of this matter. So they have just mentioned us that they will disclose it in the notes to financial statements. So this is what happened. Abam 17 breaches ഉണ്ട്. നമ്മൾ പൈസ കൊടുക്കണം എന്നുള്ള കാര്യം ഉറപ്പാണ്. ഇയർ എൻഡിന് ശേഷമാണ് ഇത് കൺഫേം ആവുന്നത്. ഡയറക്ടേഴ്സ് പറയുന്ന അവർ ഡിസ്ക്ലോസ് ചെയ്തോളാം, അവർ കൊടുക്കൂല, ഇയർ എൻഡിന് ശേഷം നടന്നേക്കുന്നതായത് കറണ്ട് ഇയർ എൻഡിൽ കാണിക്കണ്ടെന്നാണ് പറഞ്ഞേക്കുന്നത്. Just for next 5 minutes, think about the issue properly. If there is any mistake, calculate whether it is material, calculate pervasiveness, consider the impact over the financial statements. So first of all, think about the actual accounting treatment required, think about the requirements properly, calculate the materiality, consider whether it is pervasive, and consider what will be the impact over the financial statements. Please start with this. So let's start with the question now. So what's the amount of misstatement here? What's the amount of misstatement?
850,000.
850,000. So how did you get that?
17 into 50.
No, there are 17 breaches in total. And for each breach, how much is the amount that will be charged? 50,000, right? So it gives rise to 850,000 as the total misstatement. So is that amount material here?
Yes.
Yes.
How can you consider materiality? It's 0.85 million. And when it comes to the company's profit, it's 5.3 million. So you need to consider how much it's a amount of profit. At the same time, the total asset of the company is 40.1 million. Out of which also it's 8.5 into 100. What's the amount of profit
16%.
Sorry,
16.
16%. Okay. What's the amount of total asset?
2%.
2%. So is that material?
Yes.
Yes, because it's
Yes.
more than profit. Sorry, it's more than the materiality limit for the profit. Because for profit, we know that if it is 5% is more than the profit, it will be material. When it comes to the total asset, if it is more than 1% of the total asset, it need to be treated as material. So it's material to both the profit as well as to the total asset. And what about the amount of pervasiveness? Is that amount pervasive or not? Misstatement?
No.
No, because company is having a total profit of 5.3 million. So the profit will not be restated into losses even after the misstatement is adjusted. So this is not pervasive. So it's a mistake which is material but not pervasive to the financial statements. So what kind of opinion we need to express here? When there is a mistake which is material but not pervasive,
Qualified.
yeah, we need to give a qualified opinion on the financial statements. Is that clear, everyone?
Yes.
Oh. So which will be the applicable accounting treatment here?
IS 10.
It's IAS 10, and along with that, there is also IAS
37.
37. And as per IAS 10, events after reporting period, is this an adjusting event or a non-adjusting event?
Adjusting.
Adjusting
It's
event.
an adjusting event. So when it comes to adjusting event, what will be the related accounting treatment?
IS 37.
Which means we need to adjust it in the company's financial statement, right? When it comes to an adjusting event, and only non-adjusting event will be disclosed in the financial statements. And as an adjusting event here, we need to recognize an amount of provision for the probable future cash outflow in relation to the 17 breaches, but the company is not willing to create that. So what will be the impact in the financial statements? Provision will be understated and the company's profit will be
Overstated.
overstated. So that will be the issue. So we have figured out about which opinion we need to express over the company's financial statements. But the examiner has asked us to discuss the issue first. Then we need to describe about the impact over auditor's report. So when we get a question like this, what you need to do is that, first of all, you need to mention about the fact, which means you need to identify the issue from the scenario. Then you need to give the related accounting treatment that is actually required for the scenario. After giving the accounting treatment, then just after that, you need to mention about what will go wrong. Or if it is already misstated, then what went wrong, and impact on FS have to be given. Then you need to mention whether this mistake is material or not. Then you need to mention whether it is pervasive. Then you need to give your opinion. And finally, after all this, you have to give basis of opinion as well. So this is how you will be expressing your answer. So first of all, you will need to mention fact from the scenario. You need to mention that Encore company have violated transport regulation. And in total, they have 17 breaches. And the company is required to pay a penalty of 50,000 per breach. However, this has become confirmed for a probable future cash outflow on 12th of August 2015 after the year end. Therefore, as per IAS 10 events after reporting period, this have to be considered as a adjusting event in the company's financial statements, which is required to have adjusted in the company's FS for the current year. However, the company is not intending to make any required adjustment treatment in the company's financials. Instead, they have mentioned that they will just disclose it in the FS. As per IAS 37 provision, contingent liability and contingent asset, companies should have created a provision for the probable future cash outflow in relation to the breaches. If not, the provision is understated and the profit of the company would be overstated. As the company have 17 breaches and each of the breach is charged with 50,000 as penalty, so there's a total misstatement of 850,000 in the financial statements. which represents 16% of the profit and 2% of the total asset. Therefore, it is material to the company's financial statements. Even though the amount of misstatement is material, it cannot be treated as pervasive, as the profit of the company is not restated into losses. As it's a mistake which is material but not pervasive, the auditor need to provide a qualified opinion stating that, except for the matters identified, rest of the financial statement shows a true and fair view. Following the opinion paragraph, auditor shall also provide a basis of qualified opinion, which would express the reasons for providing qualified opinion and also quantify the misstatements in relation to the provision. So this is what you need to give us the answer. So you need to first of all clearly mention fact or identify the issues in the scenario. Then you have to give the accounting treatment that is actually required. You need to mention about what will go wrong in the scenario or what have already went wrong in the scenario. Then you need to mention whether the amount is material or not. Then you have to consider whether it is pervasive. Then you need to state about which sort of opinion that need to be expressed by the auditor. And finally, we should also provide the basis of opinion paragraph as well. So this is how you will be giving answers for the matters and auditor's report ka impact part. So this will be asked as part of 5-mark question. So as we mentioned, first of all, you have to calculate all the materiality first. Then you need to consider whether it is pervasive. And finally, you have to decide on the opinion. And then you have to express the answer in this format. So this is how you need to give the answers for the reporting part. Is that clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
All right. So these are the set of questions which we have actually planned to revise today. And in the next day's next day's session, we will be purely focusing. Just a moment. We will be purely focusing on the area of substantive procedures. So we will be going through all the important discussion that is actually required to attend before practicing a question from the area of substantive. And in addition to which, we will be practicing multiple questions from the substantive procedures as well. So definitely tomorrow's session will be very much effective for those students who are struggling in the area of substantives. So everyone, please do try to attend the live session itself for the area of substantives. Okay. So അപ്പോൾ ഇത്രയും കാര്യങ്ങളാണ് ഇന്ന് ഡിസ്കസ് ചെയ്യാനായിട്ടുള്ളത്. സോ നാളെ നമ്മൾ സബ്സ്റ്റാൻറ്റീവ്സിന്റെ ഏരിയയ്ക്കും ഡിസ്കസ് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ടാവുക. അപ്പോൾ എല്ലാവരും സബ്സ്റ്റാൻറ്റീവ്സിന്റെ ഏരിയ റിവൈസ് ചെയ്തിട്ട് വരിക. ആൻഡ് വിൽ ബി ഗോയിങ് ത്രൂ ഓൾ ദി ഏരിയാസ് ഓഫ് സബ്സ്റ്റാൻറ്റീവ്സ്. ഐ മീൻ ഓൾ ദി ഇമ്പോർട്ടന്റ് ഏരിയാസ് ഓഫ് സബ്സ്റ്റാൻറ്റീവ്സ്. അപ്പം എല്ലാവരും റിവൈസ് ചെയ്തിട്ട് വരിക കേട്ടോ. ഓൾറൈറ്റ്. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.